Did you wake up one morning to discover that you owned a company? For many of us, the journey to entrepreneurship is an accidental one, fueled by purpose and grit. Today's guest shares her story of resilience through many tough challenges. Stay tuned for another great episode of Bad Boss Confessional. Hi, I'm Beth Fahey, and welcome to Bad Boss Confessional. I've been a leader for over 30 years, and I'll be honest, I've made plenty of mistakes along the way. The thing is, those mistakes taught me more about leadership than any success ever did. This podcast is where we get honest about the moments we'd rather forget and discover why they're actually the ones worth remembering. Each week, I talk with leaders who aren't afraid to share their worst boss moments and what they learned from them. Because here's what I know. Every great leader has a story they're not proud of. This is where we tell those stories. Today's guest is Kathy Bresler, founder of Alter Community, a hidden gem in Chicago that's both a vibrant community and an inspiring event space. Alter hosts everything from curated corporate offsites to speaker series and wellness programs, all designed to help people connect, recharge, and grow. A visionary entrepreneur, Kathy will speak candidly about the messy, humbling, and ultimately transformational journey of turning vision into leadership. Kathy, I am so glad to have you on the podcast.
I'm so glad to be here. I feel very honored to be invited.
Oh, thank you. It's interesting because we've sort of orbited in, kind of our own little worlds for the last several years, and we haven't crossed over too much until recently. And I attended an event at your space, and I was just so impressed with how beautiful it was and just what a great vibe, energy there was in that space, in that room. And I'm just curious, like, how did you get here? What's the story?
Well, I mean, you and I met I think in 2019 when it was like essentially a twinkle in my eye that had been, honestly, I've been dreaming about creating a community space in Chicago for decades. So, like, where to start? In some sense, there was a place called Transitions Book Place. Did you ever know it? It was like a bookstore and a community space, and it was they had like spiritual books, and they would have speakers. When Deepak Chopra would come to town, like that's where those kind of speakers would come.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a lifeline for me, sort of like back in the day when I was first starting on my, leaving corporate and starting my journey of like, who am I? What do I want to be when I grow up? And it abruptly closed in like 2010, and it left sort of a hole in a lot of our lives in Chicago as a resource. And in 2012, I happened, and I don't know, I had just wanted to create a space. I don't really know what to tell you, except that it was like, it's what I was hungry for. And I was like, I'm going to make it. Like, that's kind of what I've done my whole life. So anyway, I got together in 2012. I happened to connect with 5 other women, all of whom were looking to like wanting a space and missing Transitions Book Place. So we formed a project called Transitions 2.0, and we envisioned this community space. And we were like, we all did the Colby, and we were like a whole bunch of like visionaries, and we would have these fabulous meetings and tons of ideas. And then we would assign, like, you do this. And I was a project manager. I came out of strategy consulting and brand management. Like, I have the skills. It's just not my natural way. So anyway, it was like we would assign things, and then we'd come back 2 weeks later and no one would have done anything. And then we would have another like inspiring, fabulous, meeting. And eventually we did our Colby, and we realized that we were sort of like a team of like identical people, and none of the work was ever done. And so we sort of disbanded, and I became the keeper of the vision. And like, I still had this drive to create it. And then it took another 8 years. And a lot of meandering. I started a women's circle in my living room called Lift, Living in Flow Together. And there was a lot of years where I thought, that's enough. I don't need a center. And then there were other, there's just this pull to create something where more women than the 10 that could fit in my living room, more people could gather. And so, in honestly, it's like every time I say it, January 1 of 2020, I finally got the keys to this fabulous 4,000 square foot space. I was like ready to go. We were going to launch March 18th with on the equinox with a whole host of amazing programming. I had amassed a community of women who were practitioners and healers and coaches, and then COVID hit. So my journey, I mean, what would already have probably been a difficult journey, the same journey I've been on of how do you go from being a visionary to making something real, starting a physical gathering space in the middle of a global pandemic. It was
Oh my gosh.
quite a trial by fire.
Wow. So I just have to ask, what did you do? We weren't allowed to leave our houses.
No, I mean,
So you've got this space is ready to go.
yeah, stunning, ready to go. I had spent 2 months making it, this welcoming third space was the idea, right? Kind of like a soulful Soho house. And anyway, so what we did, interestingly, like everybody else, right? We just pivoted. So I had this community of practitioners and friends, and we just started offering everything online. So we did our first online program April 9th, and it was a sound healing and a journaling. And we just did all kinds of, self-development, self-care, connection, building programming that was our agenda anyway, right? It was what we were going to do in person. Everybody just banded together and started offering things online. But for me, and so the space sat empty. I actually hardly even came to the space during COVID because we hadn't even launched, right?
Mm-hmm.
What made something an altar event was literally that I was on the Zoom saying hey, we're altar. And that was, exhausting and kind of a weird way to be,
Yeah.
branding, seeding what this was.
Did you find that people were hungry for it though?
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely.
Yeah.
And now what's interesting is we're Chicago based, but we had women zooming in from LA and from Philadelphia and from, Florida. That was kind of a cool thing, was that we built this community. People were so hungry for it. I mean, I think people were hungry for community, period, but then obviously during the pandemic. And for ways to, I think that, a lot of people who maybe didn't think about self-care or mindfulness or, mental health, started to think about it obviously during COVID. And so our audience in a way expanded because I was always interested in that stuff, but I feel many more people who were maybe saw themselves as more mainstream, or I don't know the right word,
Mm-hmm.
conventional, were
Mm-hmm.
very hungry. And I think one of our intentions is to just make all of that quite seamless and accessible.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in corporate life, I always felt like my work self and my real self were two different people, right? I couldn't fully show up. And so when I left and I went into executive recruiting, actually in a small all women's firm, and I recruited in the field I came out of, was the first time I ever felt fully integrated. I just got to be myself in all the
Mm-hmm.
ways. And so I feel that's the vibe that we brought even to the online stuff, come as you
Mm-hmm.
are. And certainly that is our intention at Alter, with everything we do, whether you come for a corporate program like you did, or you're one of our members where you use our space as like a third space, home away from home,
Mm-hmm.
co-working,
Mm-hmm.
networking. Our intention is for everyone to leave feeling uplifted and inspired, like altered in some way, that they go back out into the world and they bring that good energy, that, inspiration, that maybe clearer, more authentic sense of self back out into their lives and into the world. And so we were doing that, I think, for people during COVID as well.
But what a way to tie you to your mission in the early days,
Yeah.
in retrospect, right?
In retrospect. And I feel like people have said to me, and I know that it's true, being on the other side of the pandemic, like our need for community, right? Our need for in-person connection, our need for balance and self-care and just wholeness is so much stronger than it, greater than it was. And more people, I think, recognize it. So in a way, like, yeah, what we're about is is more aligned now than it was had the pandemic never happened. But you know, it was a lot.
Yeah, well, that's quite a story, and congratulations for weathering the storm and coming out the other side. And again, it is a great space that I enjoy coming to. So, well, tell me about your corporate life and your journey. I'm just curious. I know a lot of entrepreneurs that started there. And so if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit about your background, a little bit more than you have.
I started out, so I guess I should start by saying, like, on some level, I feel like I was born sort of like a mystic at heart, right? Like I've always been very interested in psychology and self-development and sort of like, why are we here? Like, what's it all about? But I think I for whatever reason, um, really got the impression that that was not a serious endeavor for one's life. So while I was interested in psychology, I studied economics, and I was like, I'm going to be in business. My dad was an entrepreneur. My mom went back to law school when I was 11. Like there was certainly like, I need to do something serious with my life. And so kind of, I feel like, contrary to my innate urgings and perhaps zone of genius, I it was an economics major. I ended up going to work for Bain right out of college. So I did strategy consulting for 3 years. I loved it. Ended up at Kellogg, got an MBA. After my MBA, that like little thread of like psychology was always in me. So after business school, I went to work for Helene Curtis in like brand management and personal care. And so there was always like a piece of personal care marketing that was like the psychology of it. Like, why does how our hair look make us feel like a better person? There was like a piece of like, it's like trying to make the business world work for me. So I did that for several years, and I was a brand manager, and they actually, anyway, it's like a long story, but like I said, I always sort of felt like this is not quite, like, I was fine, right? It was successful enough. I just never felt like this was who I really am, or like what my talents and interests were.
Yeah.
They sent me one day to a leadership development workshop, and we did all this testing and whatever. At the end of the day, I was like, oh, I'm gonna need to quit my job. Like, I don't, it's like the danger of assessment was like, I was just clear as day. I need to find something else. I had already had two little kids at home, and I was like dying. Anyway, I ended up going, as I said, into executive recruiting and recruiting women, well, people, but it was all women firm in the field that I came out of. So in brand management and marketing. And I loved that too. It was very interpersonal and psychological, and I was really good at it. And, but then I was diagnosed with breast cancer
Mm.
at 38. And
Oof.
for me, that was like actually like a turning point where I mean, immediately I was like, whoa, I am done like trying to succeed on somebody else's terms or some idea of success or fitting myself into some, square peg that like I just, round hole for my square peg. Like if not now, when?
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of my life, I had been told like, "Ugh, you're so intense, you're so introspective, you're so deep, like lighten up, just be normal, And so when I was diagnosed, actually, so I tried hard to like not, like be normal. And when I was diagnosed, it was like the floodgates open, and I was like, it is completely appropriate when faced with a life-threatening illness to be thoughtful and intense and introspective and deep and like asking the big questions. So that was really the pivot for me where I just decided to follow my heart and my leanings. And I went on a whole kind of path of like reconnecting to what really mattered to me. And I eventually got ordained as an interfaith, interspiritual minister,
Cool.
mostly because I was just super interested in like all the different wisdom traditions, all the ways that human beings have tried to make meaning. And I'm sort of a counselor at heart. Anyway, all of that, like that sort of like doing my own work, I started hosting spaces for women to be asking the same questions and doing that kind of inner work. And that eventually I was like, oh, I'm gonna create a space where we can,
Mm.
do that together. So um I don't think I would have had the courage to do it if I didn't have like the MBA and the business experience, or at least the
Mm.
business credibility, right? Like I wouldn't have let myself do it maybe because a lot of my career I thought, what am I doing here? Like I should be a therapist or something. But now I feel like so grateful that I have kind of both of those pieces.
Yeah, that's neat. You get to use like all parts of your brain.
Yes, I feel like that was sort of my first, you know, like the first challenge. I'm sure it's like all the entrepreneurs, right? It's like, I can do it all. I have to do it all. I'm going to do it. I can do it all. And boy, is that not true.
Well, tell me, it sounds like there's a story there. Tell me a little bit about that.
I mean, it's like, I think as I thought about my bad boss moments, right? I mean, first of all, I may be a little bit different from other guests in the sense that like, for me, it's very like present moment. Like this being running Alter, creating Alter is like actually the first time I've ever been a boss, like an actual boss. I was on teams. I did a lot of great work. I did a lot of project management, but for the most part, I was kind of my own gal, my own like brain. And so I, I think like generally I'm kind of a reluctant boss. And that has contributed to the whole cascade of bad boss moments that I maybe have had over the last 5 years. This like this sort of resistance to like being a boss and like even the baggage of like what does it mean to be a boss?
Hmm.
Boss is bossy. A boss is like nobody likes the boss. Like I have a lot of, I think, unconscious sort of resistance that when I looked at it was like probably very predictable for a lot of entrepreneurs. But you know, uh I've been like, I think going with like one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake.
Well, what do you think about this idea that this is how we're socialized to think about being a boss?
I think it's true. I think, my corporate experience is a couple of decades old now. And, I think my lived experience of like what it meant to be a leader, what it meant to be a boss was maybe different than like how we talk about it today. And
Hmm.
you know, ideas about leadership, it's much broader, hopefully. But yeah, I think yes, that's how we're socialized. And then I think on top of it, women, right? We have like an added layer of like, I want to be liked, I want to be approved, I need everybody, nobody can be mad at me, I can't disappoint anyone. Like there's so much socialization that is not conscious. that, at least for me, has made it hard for me, because I am also like a very visionary, like I have very clear ideas about how things should go, but then I don't necessarily have the um, skills or the confidence or the will to like be like, this is it, and I'm the boss, and we're going to go in this direction. I want like everyone to like feel great and like me, and I that has gotten me into some definitely sticky situations.
Yeah, and it's all very human. I
Yes,
mean, male or female. I mean, a lot
absolutely.
of us want to be liked in the role of a boss, and unfortunately, sometimes it's okay to be friendly, but maybe not friends with everybody. And thinking about the greater good being, I mean, this sounds bad, but I mean, the adult in the room,
Yes,
right? And making the decisions that are hard to make. And it's not easy stuff. And, so one of the things you said is you're just getting it now. And well, welcome to the club. I mean, like we're all on the struggle bus for this for sure. And we're probably around the same age. And, I experienced, you know, growing up with thinking what a boss was supposed to be and then getting a business and then, my way or the highway. And, just, oh my
yes,
God. And we all carry around a bunch of PTSD from bad bosses. So
yeah,
we don't want to be that boss. And we kind of overcorrect or over index to
that's right,
being
right.
being the thing that we, pray we're not. So,
Yes, I feel like I sort of toggle at my worst, right? In
mhm.
my most cringy moments, I toggle between sort of being like my way or the highway, and like being a doormat, like being like, this kind of like in what I imagine is being this sort of like democratic, kind of like inclusive team collaborative thing. I end up just being not very clear, not very, like just not like people just, I think they want the boss to lead, to give direction, to yes, to inspire, but to also be like, pick away. They just want to know what to do. And in some level, and I think I just was, sometimes I was equated that kind of decisiveness with being not liked, or like that was going to jeopardize my relationships or something.
And I mean, like, I think we look at it very similarly and, obviously grew up around the same time and, had all the same sort of influences. One of the things for me, and maybe you can relate, is that I think about is, well, I'm really a coach. I mean, that's actually what being a great boss is asking great questions. And when I finally embraced that idea, it got easier for me. And so I'm wondering, the inner therapist in you, the inner coach, have you noticed that at all?
So yes, but here's the conundrum. This is a genuine question that I have. Like the rub I'm in right now, which is like, yes, that is both like the role that I feel like a good boss plays, right? And it's actually probably some of my strengths.
Uh-huh.
And I feel this pressure that like we aren't really in a place yet where like we have all the systems that we need for things to run smoothly. I don't necessarily have, I harken back to our very first conversation, like right people, right seats. Like there's so many things about the EOS that even though we weren't ready for it at the time, like stuck with me. Like
Mhm.
so like to sort of be coaching when it feels like the foundation and a lot of the systems of like that are also my responsibility as the boss to make sure they get put in place. Like it's almost like I don't have the luxury of taking that perspective yet, because like I'm still in there
Mhm.
figuring all the things out and trying to give good direction and set up the structures where I can finally step back. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's why EOS works for so many people because it's an out of the box and as you just have to just follow the system and, it'll work for you. But, sometimes when you're a smaller organization, it just doesn't make sense to bring in an implementer and, you're just trying to like get through the day. But yeah, I mean, there are so many great books out there too to help. I mean, EOS is a framework. There's lots of other things, and I'm curious if there were any other books that you've read in that have been influential in helping you during this period.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I will say, like, doing some assessments very much helped me get clear on, so like learning my Colby was life changing because I'm like super high. I think I'm like an 8 on quick start and a 7 fact finder, but then I'm like 2 on the follow through with the, and so like I beat myself up a lot about not being able to do some of these things, the more implementation stuff. And so having that perspective of like, oh, stay in your zone, stay in your lane. Like, how do I find the complementary resources? But
Mhm.
I'm also 1 on the Enneagram, so I'm like quite a perfectionist and I like
Mm.
really think things need to go like right out of the gate. And, there was just a lot of, and human design, even like I'm a manifester and learning that my type, my design is only meant to be a starter. Like I'm not really meant to finish things. And my whole life I've felt bad because like I'm not a great finisher of things.
Mhm.
So even Ultra, right, is like uh I know that I did the part that I was mine to do, which was like starting it and creating it. But like how we finish it, how we operate it, that's still an open question. So that perspective let me, like, it was part of the
Mhm.
humbling of like, this is my lane and I can like now
Mhm.
seek other people and other systems. Um, we've had some, actually, I don't have a lot of time to read, but we've had some amazing speakers at Altar this year. Actually, so we had a coach named Jody Michael who wrote a book called Leading Lightly. Then she did a full day workshop at Altar that also was very transformative for me, and a lot of it was like like mm, noticing our stories and
Mhm.
how our stories create reactivity, like create our behaviors, right?
Yeah.
And our thoughts create. And so um, I would say, generally speaking, doing a lot of that kind of thought work, whether it was Jody Michael's work. I love Cara Lowenthal. Do you know her? She
Mm-mm.
she has, I don't know if I can say this. She has a podcast called Unfuck Your Brain, and um, she wrote a book called Take Back Your Brain. And when I discovered her podcast, like there's now hundreds of episodes, but like I'll never forget episode 90 was called Perfectionist, something like Perfectionist Fantasies and Tomorrow Thinking. And it was like she dissected like how my particular perfectionism gets in my way in the most like specific ways that I would never have thought that was actually perfectionism. Like I
Oh.
thought it was just me being me, right? So like that really opened things up for me, and doing the kind of thought work, around um like what's the fact of the situation, and then what are all the stories that you're telling yourself. And
Mm.
and we actually had this past weekend Elise Lunan. Do you know her work? She's a podcast host of Pulling the Thread, and she wrote a book last year called On Our Best Behavior. uh Something, I don't have it in front of me, like how the 7 deadly sins keep women seeking to be good, right? Like men
Mm.
are like conditioned to seek power, and we are like conditioned in all these ways to be good, and
Mm.
how that undermines us. And so she just came out with a workbook, and she was at Altar on Sunday talking about it. And that work for me, all of it is like just separating like what is a fact and what is the story I'm making up about the fact, and how is that driving my behavior, my feelings about myself. I'm so hard on myself,
Mm.
and then I get hard on those around me.
Yeah.
um and so that's where most of my energy and like learning and practice has been focused on, like slowing down, noticing when I'm afraid, which I am a lot as a leader, and as an entrepreneur, and of creating something that's kind of new to the world. Like there's no blueprint, there's nothing exactly like Alter. I can't be like, well, here's how you do a thing. It's not a gym. It's not really a, a yoga studio. It's not an event space. It's a lot of things. And so just giving myself some grace and also being able to then, when I quiet all that down, it's like, oh, I can celebrate the things I actually am really good at, honoring like the parts. Like people say to me all the time, I could never have like thought to do this. I could never have I have ideas all the time, but I don't actually do anything with them. It's like, I had this idea for like 20 years and I actually did it.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
The fact that I am still figuring out how to, operationalize it in a way that is sustainable for me and, my team. Like, okay, we're working on that.
We'll return to my conversation with Kathy after a word from our sponsors. Do you love running on EOS? Try Strategy, the EOS platform people love. Native integrations and extra features help you manage people, projects, process, and engagement. Connected to your favorite EOS tools and all in one place. You love EOS. It's time to love the platform you're running it on. Try Strategy free at strety.com. That's STRETY.com. Strategy, the EOS platform people love. Let's be honest, hiring the right people is hard. That's why I love Titus Talent Strategies. Their whole person hiring approach helps you find and keep A players who align with your values, and they back it with an industry-leading guarantee. Best part? Titus Talent Strategies is included in the Entrepreneurial Toolkit for companies running on EOS. Check them out at titustalent.com/EOS. And now, back to my conversation with Kathy. We delude ourselves into thinking that someday we'll arrive.
Yeah.
Someday we'll get there. With all this hard work, with all of this blood, sweat, and tears, we will eventually get to the promised land, and it's the thing is it's the journey. It's the learning along.
Yeah, no, I think that's really true. And I think, like sit back and enjoy the ride. Like if I'm not enjoying this, I mean, not that it's like fun and games every minute, but like if I am so clenched and so fearful and like it just, what's the point? There's just, it's not really worth it. And honestly, when I've gotten to that place in other parts of my life and my career, I quit. I decided the thing was the problem. And so I quit my corporate job, or I quit the board, or I just, when I was like, I don't need to live like this. Alter was the first time that I cared so much about something and bringing it into the world. It actually makes me feel kind of weepy. Like I wasn't willing to quit when all those patterns and fears and burnout and all the things showed up. I just persevered and like have been slowly but surely growing and learning to value the journey, right? That Alter is maybe here for that. Like in some level, the purpose is for me to like grow into the person I am capable of being. And then maybe by doing that, that's what we're offering to everyone else. But
that's the thing with entrepreneurs, it's a very lonely place. Sometimes we think we're crazy, when you're chasing down some idea, like, and everyone around you is saying things like, wouldn't it just be easier to just get a jobby job? Like, and you feel like a crazy person telling them, well, I did that. Doesn't work for me. And the way I look at it, at the end of your life, you're going to look back and say, did I bring value? Did I make the world in a better place in whatever way that I possibly could. And that's what entrepreneurship allows you to do.
Mm, I love that framing.
Whatever you're passionate about, however you're making somebody else's life easier, because I think that really ultimately the real entrepreneurs are not doing it for money. They might get into the business thinking like, well, I'm going to make a lot of money doing this. But if there is not a purpose that's driving you every day, getting you out of bed every morning, I just don't think that it's sustainable.
Yeah, that's interesting because I feel like I am a little bit of an accidental entrepreneur, I think.
Yeah.
Like in the sense that I was all purpose, right? I and then COVID happened and that was sort of distracting. Like I don't know that I like really connected all the dots all the way to like I'm gonna make this beautiful space and I have this vision and we're gonna create community. And then all that is really entailed in like running it and making it sustainable financially as well, right? So I kind of was the other way around, but I feel like, if this is what I say to people, like if the metric is what you said, like impacting people's lives. I mean, I have women every single day who say to me like, "Thank you for creating this. It's exactly what I needed. I'm so grateful to have it." Like if that's the metric, then I am winning the game. If the metric is like
Profitability.
profitability, sustainability, sort of like operational sustainability for me and for like all the people it takes to like make this thing run, like we are still looking for that right mix and balance. And it has been helpful to realize like so are a whole lot of other people. Like I feel like feel I have often like felt like we should be there already. And like who knows when already is when you started in the middle of the pandemic and also you're doing something that like isn't exactly like anything else. So I'm trying to like, you know, give myself
Yeah,
some peace and embrace the entrepreneurial side of it, honestly. Like that's a journey that is that can be really a fun adventure. It doesn't have to be a burden.
absolutely. Well, this has been a lovely conversation. I've really enjoyed getting to know you better. And thank you so much for sharing your stories, because I think that we're all so much more alike than we are different.
Yes.
And listening to other people, and, when they share the things that they struggle with, we realize that we're not alone. And I think that is the community that I guess I'm trying to build, right? Is just
Yeah.
one of, let's give ourselves some grace. Nobody's got this figured out. We're just trying to get better and make the world a better place. And you're definitely doing that. So thank you so much for being here, Kathy.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I love what you're doing, and it is so needed, and it has already helped me. So
Oh,
thank
good.
you.
I'm so
Really.
glad.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks to Kathy Bresler for sharing her story about being an accidental entrepreneur. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, subscribe, and share with friends who need to hear this. Thanks for listening to Bad Boss Confessional. We'll see you next week.